The horror movie character is an unpredictable beast. While many leads, supports, and villains are seemingly doomed from the opening crawl, they often defy our expectations and come back with a vengeance, or at least make it to the end without croaking. Sometimes, though, you have no idea how they made it out alive, considering just how close they skirted with death. So with that in mind, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 horror movie characters who are seconds away from dying. Number 10, Paul Misery. A sucker for punishment, successful romance novelist Paul Sheldon has a rough ride in the Stephen King adaptation of Misery. I mean, it's kind of in the name. In this movie, Paul crashes his car during a blizzard before being rescued from the wreckage by the solitary local nurse Annie Wilkes. Annie nurses him, feeds him, and forces him, under pain of torture, to write a new novel for her. While the unlucky author has a number of close shaves with death throughout the film, from the initial car crash through to the final fight with his captor, there is one moment in particular that is a cut above the rest. In a particularly melancholic moment following her slaying of the local sheriff, Annie decides that it's time for her and Paul to check out, advancing on him with a syringe and a gun. But Paul stops her in her tracks with a well-timed "I love you too." Bluffing his way out of imminent doom, Paul convinces Annie that, if she lets him live a little longer, he can complete the new novel and give it back to the world before they leave it together, buying him time to plot his escape and her demise. Number 9, Libby, I Saw What You Did. One of the horror thrillers that attempted to fill cinema's Hitchcock-shaped gap in the mid-60s, William Castle's I Saw What You Did managed to snag John Ireland and a late-career Joan Crawford for this movie. Here, two teenage girls, Libby Mannering and Kate Austin, prank call a man called Steve who has murdered his wife. Oblivious to the facts of the matter and the danger they are putting themselves in, they tell him that they saw what he did and know who he is, beginning a deadly game of crossed wires and mistaken identities. By the conclusion of the film, Libby has put two and two together though and foolishly thinks that she's safe to go it alone. Waiting in the backseat of her car, Steve suddenly springs an attack, intending to silence her for good. But then Steve is shot dead through the rear window. The state trooper who came to check on the girls early in the film stuck around, and isn't that a stroke of luck? Number 8, Shigeharu Audition. Takashi Miike's Audition really doesn't mess around when it comes to charting the stone-cold brutality of the damaged human spirit. In the film, baby doll psychic killer Isami Yamazaki has an abusive past that haunts her, which manifests as a possessive-repulsive dichotomous relationship with the men she seduces, which drives her to torture, maim, and even murder. One such victim comes in the form of the film's protagonist, the unlucky-in-love widower Shigeru Aoyama, who stages the titular audition in the hopes of finding a new Mrs. Right. While things fly along merrily enough during their initial entanglement, Isami eventually drugs him so that he is paralyzed, yet still able to feel pain, and then tortures him to the end of death. With the blood swiftly draining from him and one foot severed, Isami is about to make inroads on the other when Shigeharu's son, Shigehiko, walks in on them. In the ensuing fight, Shigehiko himself comes within seconds of death, but ultimately triumphs over Isami, booting her down the stairs and breaking her neck. Number 7, Thomason The Witch. Though Robert Eggers has just released The Northman, his debut period folk horror film, The Witch, remains his best work. Set in 1630s New England, Anya Taylor-Joy plays Thomason, the daughter of a Puritan family that encounters what may be the forces of darkness in the woods behind their farm. Paranoia suddenly engulfs the family, and soon they are seeing witchcraft and devilry in all the misfortunes that befall them, including the death of the other children and the supposedly malicious machinations of Black Phillip, the family goat/banter merchant. In a harrowing scene following the goring of her father by Black Phillip, Thomason must fight her own mother Catherine, who blames all of their woes on her. Taking Thomason to the ground, Catherine beats her and then begins choking her with all the strength she has. When it looks like Thomason can't hold on for a second longer though, she strikes with a billhook, stabbing her mother to death but saving herself in the process. Number 6, early 1900s man, The Endless. Okay, so this one is a little bit different, but it's far too good to leave off. In the film, brothers Justin and Aaron Smith receive a videotape in the post enticing them to Camp Arcadia, the wilderness-based death cult or peace commune depending on which way you look at it, which they abandoned years before. But all is not as it seems, and soon the entity, a mysterious presence capable of creating and controlling time loops, makes itself known. Amongst its many victims and captors is the nameless individual known only in the film's credits as Early 1900s Man. Forced into a few-second time loop by the entity for the better part of a century, Early 1900s Man is forever just moments away from his own death, trapped on a wooden chair inside a small tent, forever trying to escape this mortal coil. Every time he makes a run for the door of the tent, the entity pulls him back from the edge of a gruesome death and he finds himself on his seat once again. Number 5. Noah Fresh. Daisy Edgar Jones's Noah comes so close to death many times throughout this year's underrated gem, Fresh. After she's kidnapped by the psychotic surgeon Steve, who intends to keep her alive in captivity in order to slowly carve her up and sell her meat to high-paying elite cannibals around the world, Noah is eventually able to manipulate her way out of the situation. Playing into Steve's desire for her, Noah lulls him into believing that she really loves him, which allows her the opportunity to bite his penis off and then escape. Now Steve isn't one to let something like a little bit of knob terror slow him down though, and brutally attacks Noah and the other captives. Eventually, the women get the upper hand though and put a bullet through its head. The nightmare doesn't stop there though, as Steve's wife, also in on his side hustle, shows up and assaults Noah when she's separated from her friends. She's just about done for, having the life choked out of her before shanking Steve's wife with her final breath. Number 4. Detective Hoffman, Saw 6. Initially introduced as one of the franchise's many police detectives in Saw 3, corrupt detective Lieutenant Mark Hoffman rose to prominence in the film's sequels, going rogue as a Jigsaw accomplice and then again as something of a free radical aligned with no one but himself. But this constant and quite frankly exhausting double-crossing almost scuppered him in Saw 6. Captured by Jill Tuck, Jigsaw's wife, Hoffman is locked into a reverse bear trap, one of the series' most enduring murder devices. Unfortunately for all though, Detective Hoffman knows how to play the game and makes it out of the trap literally a few seconds before it springs open, his right cheek being torn apart in the process, but otherwise no worse for wear. Number 3. Michael, Halloween Kills. Against all the odds, the Shape is on the move again in this sequel, and the film picks up where we left off in Halloween 2018. Michael makes his escape from the burning building, walking through the flames and slaughtering an entire firefighter crew, before going on the hunt for Laurie Strode and her family once again, intent on finishing what he started. However, for the first time in the Halloween franchise's history, he comes face to face with the victimized citizens of Haddonfield and almost takes an L. In a brutal beatdown unlike anything we've ever seen visited upon the Halloween villain before, Tommy Doyle's mob lay Michael out with pretty much every kind of weapon imaginable, including a baseball bat, a crowbar, his own knife, and a gun. Lying prone in the middle of the road, lifeless and defeated with his own knife in his back, Michael looks like a goner for sure. But more the fool us for celebrating too soon. Just as he's about to get capped in the noggin, Michael catches a second wind and goes to town on his would-be killers. Feeding off the mob's rage and thirst for vengeance, he slices throats, opens chests, and gets back down to business. Number 2. Ripley Alien. In terms of filmmaking innovation alone, Ridley Scott's original sci-fi horror Alien is in a class of its own. Only one of 2 women on the spaceship the Nostromo, Warrant Officer Ripley is subjected to the many poor decisions of her male crewmates and soon finds herself in a fight for her life against an alien invader. You know, acid spit, teeth-filled tongue, long phallic latexy head, you might know of him. Following the death of her crewmates and the destruction of the Nostromo though, Ripley legs it onto the escape shuttle with nothing but crew cat Jones for company, or at least so she thinks. Preparing for stasis, she almost doesn't notice the stowaway on board. After spotting the xenomorph though, donning a spacesuit and attempting to gas the thing to death, Ripley is almost out of options. It bears down on her one last time, teeth bared, ready to tear her apart and kill off some major sequel potential. But just as it might have gotten away with it, Ripley's quick thinking with the airlock release means that it's sent to an early grave. Number 1. Dewey Scream 2. Scream 2 picks the story up at Windsor College, where series protagonist Sidney Prescott is being haunted by the ghost face of her past. And soon enough, the whole gang is drawn back into the fray, including Gale and Dewey. Now, it's not a Scream movie if Deputy Dewey doesn't stare death directly in the eye, but Scream 2's encounter feels just a little bit too close for comfort. During one of the film's most tense sequences, Ghostface hunts Gale through the university's audio labs. Dewey comes to find her without checking his corners, and before you can ask, do you like scary movies, the killer gets the drop on him. Separated by some industry-standard soundproofing, we are left to imagine Gale's screams as Dewey is knifed bloody and hurled against the plexiglass window. The thing is though, I have absolutely no idea how Dewey survived this. It's seemingly hours since he's attacked before being pulled out by paramedics, and how he didn't bleed out is anyone's guess, but I am very pleased he didn't. So that's our list. Want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think about these near misses, and are there any cool ones I missed off here? While you're down there as well, can you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.